You're listening to the Nobody Asked Podcast. It's Thursday, bitches. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the Nobody Asked Podcast. I'm your host, Sam. And honestly, recording this episode is kind of freeing, but also breaks my heart. And for people who need like a little bit of a backstory, I started a small business when I was in college as just like a way to financially support me, but it became more than that very quickly. And I started by making scrunchies with like unique fabrics that I would pick out. And like at the time, scrunchies were just kind of coming back in style. So there weren't a lot of like trendy patterns and like holiday ones in stores. But like now that's pretty popular. But again, this was like 2019 and they were just kind of coming back. So I feel like that's why I did really well with scrunchies from the beginning, because obviously they were a trend. But like eventually I knew the trend would die down and like the inventory of like the cute pattern scrunchies would make its way to the store. Honestly, it didn't even matter at the time because I was happy to transition to like other things that used more design skills than like actual physical art skills. So I started doing apparel, I did stickers, phone cases, mouse pads, like resin items. And then I continued to grow the business on Etsy even after I graduated college. And if I'm being honest, Etsy was great exposure, but at the end of the day, they just took so much profit that it stopped feeling worth it for me personally. And also, Etsy does a terrible job of defending their sellers, which I feel like is a hard pill to swallow considering most small businesses can't afford the loss just because a customer might be being outrageous. So eventually I decided to create my own website, which was pretty much like a dream moment for me. I just spent so long imagining what it would be like to get to the point where I could leave Etsy. I also think the thought of being able to design my own website and use my design degree to chase like a different dream pretty much just lit my soul, my universe on fire until it didn't anymore. And I think that was a tough pill to swallow, but eventually I think I realized that I was doing it out of obligation and not doing it out of passion. And I couldn't accept that something that once made me feel so alive doesn't make me feel anything anymore. And I feel like letting go of an era of, honestly, my identity has always been something that I struggle with. But also, this era just felt so much more personal. And I think it's because art has pretty much been my life for as long as I can remember. So I feel like to stop loving something creative broke my heart. And I feel like I spent so many months constantly wondering if I should close the shop or not until I just finally grew enough balls to do it. But at some point, I feel like I just came to the realization that there just isn't enough time to be a podcaster, to be a full-time designer, a small business owner, a photographer, a YouTuber. Like, it's not possible. And maybe it is for some people, but for me, it was not possible. And I kind of got to the point where I was like, if I want to succeed in anything, I need to decide what I want more and focus on doing a few things really well instead of trying to do 30 things half-assed. And I just sat and thought about it and pretty much was just like, I want this podcast so badly. I've wanted to be a YouTuber since freaking 2016 when I started a makeup channel. And then also, I worked so hard for 5 years to become the designer that I am today. So I just feel like I came to the decision that I want to do podcasting. I want to try to do YouTube. I want to be a graphic designer, video editor, whatever. And I wanted all of that more than I wanted to keep running my small business. So, as hard as it was, I had to let it go. Sometimes I think about what life would be like if I took my YouTube channel seriously, like 8 years ago. Like, who would I be? What would my life look like? Am I happy? But then I also remember who I was then versus who I am now. And when you think about it that way, I'm happy it went how it did because I honestly didn't know myself then. And I feel like I was so wrapped up in being just like Jaclyn Hill, I couldn't even bother to be myself. But the me I am now, I don't even know how to be anyone else. And I feel like that's why I love this podcast so much because I feel like I can fully be myself and I can just let you into my brain, which to me is like pure therapy. And every time I burn out and I take an unexplained break, I just miss it. And the moment I start doing it again, I can't stop remembering the magic that I feel when I record an episode. I feel like I get hooked on the feeling that I get after like pouring my heart out to a random microphone in my parents' attic. And then it's like, it just clicks in my brain. That's why I work 9 to 5 and then spend 5 to midnight working on my own stuff. So basically, this episode is my formal apology for all of my recent bullshit and missing episodes. I feel like closing my business was kind of the final step that I needed to take to like pursue everything that I want. And I don't know, it broke my heart. And 4 years later, it will always be one of my favorite plot lines in my story. But I'm honestly excited to put it to rest and finally take a shot at what I've been pretty much wanting since like 2016. And honestly, a bonus is that I can finally take art back as a hobby and not a hustle. But we will talk about that topic more next week. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week and an even better weekend. I apologize for this being a short episode. I didn't have a ton to say about closing my business, but I did have a lot of feelings still, so I at least wanted to make an episode to explain those feelings, but I promise next week will be a much longer episode. But sometimes I really like the short episodes, so let me know what you think. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Nobody Asked podcast on YouTube and give us a follow on TikTok and Instagram for more content. Anyways, I will see you bitches next Thursday. Bye.